For many of us who grew up on the prairie, the vast expanse of the skyline seems endless, stretching into eternity. The endless flatness of the canola and wheat fields stretching beneath a boundless blue sky creates a feeling that time itself has paused. In this place, it often feels as though the world is defined by nothing more than the faint, delicate line where earth meets the sky. On November the 30th, the WAG-Qaumajuq opened a brand new exhibit at the Pavillion at the Assiniboine Park Conservancy that explores the ideas of the vistas that make up the horizon. Called Shifting Horizons, this exhibit explores the idea of the horizon, a place where lines, shapes, and patterns brim with energy. The exhibit contends that the horizon line does not simply guide our sightline, it also disrupts space and interrupts time. The exhibit is curated by WAG-Qaumajuq's newly appointed TD Curatorial Fellow, Nawang Kinkar. Nawang Kinkar is a curator, writer, and researcher of Tibetan descent. Born as part of the exile community in Kathmandu, Nepal, she is also an immigrant and settler from Toronto, where she completed her undergraduate studies in art history, English, and book and media studies at the University of Toronto. She holds a Master's of Arts in Photography Preservation and Collection Management from Toronto Metropolitan. And joining me here in the Classic 107 studio to talk about her exhibit, Shifting Horizons, I am joined by Nawang Kinkar. Hi, Nawang. Nice to have you here.
Hi. Thank you so much, Chris, for picking this up. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Before we get to the exhibit, you were appointed a curatorial fellow this year. How has it been so far, and how are you liking Winnipeg?
I'm really loving Winnipeg. I actually arrived in July, so in the middle of summer, and really appreciated, I think, the prairie summer, because I've been used to very humid. Compared to Winnipeg, I've been used to very humid summers in Toronto. So being here and experiencing the July, August, and September, really those months, it was really a beautiful time to arrive and try to settle into a new city, a new region. I've never been to the prairies, so yeah, a lot to kind of explore. And now, obviously, we're in the winter. It's very snowy outside, and I had to trudge through the snow this morning.
Right.
And all of those experiences are new, I think, because winters in Toronto aren't the same anymore. So it's nice to see a ton of snow on the ground, to me. Anyway, for now, let's see. For now.
I'm
romanticizing this a lot.
I'll talk to you in February.
Yeah, exactly.
The official title is the TD Curatorial Fellow. It's supported with the help of the TD Bank Group. What made you interested in applying for this position at the WAG?
Yeah, I been working in the arts for about 10 years now in various different roles, and I've only, I guess, would say became interested in curatorial work in the last 3-4 years now, and I'd done a few research assistant positions and assisted other curators, but I really was looking for a position that was gonna allow me to curate. And when this came up, it was kind of a perfect opportunity, and I had been following WAG-Qaumajuq's work from afar, obviously, on the news, and especially with the kind of expansion and transformation of Qaumajuq. I just thought it was a really wonderful opportunity to live somewhere else in Canada, something that I've also wanted to do in my personal life. But this position was unique in the sense that it was for it wanted to support emerging curators and the opportunity to actually curate exhibitions. It's a big deal, and I think this was important for my this stage in my career.
Right. When you got the job and it came time to curate a show, it really does help to know what's in the library, what's in the collection. When you arrived at the WAG-Qaumajuq, did people give you tours of not only the exhibits, but also what they had in storage in the building as well? How did that work?
Yeah, one of the first things I think, especially being new to being in a new work environment in a gallery museum space, one of the main things for me is to get to know my colleagues from different departments. I did receive some exhibition tours, collection gallery tours from the other curators, and one of our main registrar at the gallery, Nicole Fletcher. She also gave me a tour of the vaults and kind of showed me how things went down in the basement and how their work is connected to obviously the curatorial and exhibitions that go up in the walls. Speaking also to my colleagues in the education department who have so much to also offer, it was a great way to kind of learn about everybody's roles in the museum and see the ways in which they're interacting and interacting with art and the public. That's kind of been I guess I've been here about 5 months now. I've been trying to make a point to kind of speak to at least one person from each department to get a good idea of the space and of the gallery. Yeah,
while at the same time discovering new artists.
Exactly.
New artists that are here in Winnipeg.
Yes,
right?
Exactly, and that's a big part of how this exhibition also came into fruition. Really, yeah.
The exhibition contends that the horizon line does not simply guide our sight line, it disrupts space and interrupts time. How? Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I was really drawn to the horizon line in like a conventional landscape painting. It guides your perspective. It draws you into a specific area, and I think. What I mean when I say disrupt space and time is that with some of the works that I've paired ire with in that exhibition, there's no narrative really. Space and forms is just on a flat plane with blobs of color. You'll see different kinds of lines, and there's really not a singular narrative, and it invites the viewer to kind of glance or look at any aspect of the work. Right. So that's what I meant when I said disrupt space and time. I think I looked at Ayer's work a lot. And of course, he has a lot of landscape paintings. He has a lot of still lives and does a lot of figurative kind of surrealist works. But I was more drawn to the landscapes. More significantly, I guess more personally because I'm new to this region. And I've been going back and forth, exploring out in Winnipeg. I actually also took a little road trip to Brandon with my colleague where I actually got to see the canola field oils and the vast blue sky and be on the road, So kind of drawing from that and then going back to Ayer's work and thinking about his high horizons that he was also really known for and seeing what that line does in his work and then seeing how that line is kind of experimented with by other artists. Sometimes those lines are not even there, but I was interested in that a lot.
So for our Classic 107 listeners, the Ayer that you're talking about is the artist Ivan Ayer.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. And I mean, so that's his art is sort of the starting point for the exhibition. And it's interesting. His art is actually right outside the pavilion. Yeah. For our listeners, if you've seen that big sculpture in front of the pavilion, that is a piece of Ivan Ayer's art. But there's also art in the exhibit by Bruce Head, Lisa Klapstock, and more. How did you discover the art that best supported your narrative for this exhibit?
Yeah, so along with the kind of collection and exhibition tours and talking to my colleagues, like I part of being new into this new work environment was to inevitably like research what our collection had, and I'm new to this, so I thought it was a really great first assignment to get because I was discovering a lot of artists from the region that I didn't have prior knowledge about. So that was a great way to learn about the region too. Like I had heard about Ivan Ayer, but not to this extent where I was doing any kind of critical or scholarly kind of thinking about his work, and just also by speaking to some of my other colleagues who would who have been here longer, who are more informed about the kind of arts that come out of this region. They gave me a few pointers. Like, for example, Bruce Head is somebody that I had not been aware of, but when I was down in the vaults with our vault technician Dan, he was showing me around. He was showing me through the vaults, and then I saw the work And it's interesting. One of the main things that drew me to the work is the color that Bruce was using, which is oranges and yellows, so much associated with the kind of, the prairie kind of aesthetic.
Yep.
But also the fact that that particular work that I have on the wall is a diamond canvas, right? So it's flipped, and I love that kind of perspective where now you actually don't know where the horizon is, and it like on the wall it has so much presence just because it's a diamond shape instead of a conventional like square or a paint like a landscape. So that really drew me to that because he was really playing with shape of not just what's on the canvas but the canvas itself. And then I guess you mentioned Lisa Klapstock, and I'm really glad you mentioned that one because that's one of my, I think would be one of my favorite works in there. That one is called Banff, and it's a diptych. And it's just the first work is just snow, ice. That's all you see. It's just white. And then second work, it's essentially the same as the first, but there's this figure in all black, not looking at us. It's just turned away. And I thought that was just really interesting to be looking at like a black and white kind of work and seeing and not knowing where the horizon is because it's just a big snowbank.
Right.
And then the only way that you could kind of make sense of a horizon is by looking at that one figure in black that's like, you only see the torso of that person also. So I liked the fact that it was, it's one work, but it contains two different photographs.
Where the torso gives perspective to the viewer.
Exactly. And it's, I think it's also interesting to play with the fact that the artist is using one title, one work, and has two pieces to convey this, visual kind of perspective. One
of the other things I discovered is that there are a few artists in the exhibit that have very prominent art installations around the city. Many of our listeners will have seen the large green art installations in the rotunda of Health Sciences Center by David Foreman. There's the Bruce Head wall installation that is underneath Portage and Main. If you go into the concourse, there's like you'll know it. It's the depression, the wall depressions. There's some murals by Tony Tascona that are in the lobby of the Centennial Concert Hall. And of course, the Ivan Eyre statue in front of the Pavillion. Did someone give you a tour of the art in the city, or was this just a fluke? Did this just happen?
I wish someone gave me a tour. No, I don't. I don't necessarily think it was a fluke because I think that a lot of what is represented by a lot of the works that are in the WAG's collection would be by prominent artists of the region. So then it makes sense that if we see works in public spaces, it would also be by those prominent artists. So I wouldn't say fluke, but I'm not surprised that those are the main kind of figures that are in these public spaces or commissioned by other areas that are outside of just like, art gallery kind of institutions. But yeah, I think, as I mentioned before, it was a lot of looking into the collection, what we had a lot of, and also through conversations with my colleagues, the names that would come up more easily because it was they were prominent folks who are from this region. So just a mix of all of this.
It's so great. Like there's so much Winnipeg in this exhibit that's just excellent. Just showing the different viewpoints of the horizon. On the WAG-Qaumajuq's website, there are a few select works from the exhibit. You think of horizon as being this image that you see in the distance, but not all the works are that. For example, there's that great picture of the birdhouse. And one of the things that struck me about it is the birdhouse is very well lit, but the background is actually very dark. And then there's the Mario Irisari piece, I think I'm saying that right, that looks a little bit like a road map that's sort of been zoomed in on. Why did you select those works?
I think, I'll start with the Mario Irisari piece. One of the things that I was really drawn to, or one of the reasons I was drawn to that particular work was because Ivan Eyre often wrote about roads, and he described these kind of like winding roads as like quintessential kind of prairie image. So thinking about his roads and his roads are very they look like roads. Whereas Rosaries, it doesn't actually, we don't actually know that there are roads, but I think, the way that we kind of look at that image and what we get from it is as a very road-like image. But what I liked about it was that it was very abstract from Ayers roads, and the fact that it does kind of guide our sightline, but eventually it ends, and we don't actually end at anything that is a shape or a form or that shows anything. It's just the end of the print, right? And I like that it plays with that. It's kind of like a maze almost. So that's one of the main things that drew me about Rosari's work, because I was thinking a lot about roads in Ayers' work. And then the second work that you mentioned is by Sylvie Reedman, and that birdhouse is actually one of 3 pieces in one work. So it's called Cardinal Virtues. So we've got the birdhouse, which is a giant photograph, and then we've got the smallest one, which is the view through the birdhouse. So it's a circular shape, and it's a little fuzzy around the borders, but you see the view, and the view is a pretty conventional landscape. And then the third one is a more expanded image of the landscape that we're supposed to be seeing, and it's slightly slanted though. That slight slant, I feel like adds a little bit of movement to this entire work. What drew me to this work is the fact that yes, there's 3 pieces in Sylvie Reedman's work. So there's 3 perspectives. One would think there's 3 perspectives, but I was more drawn to the fact that there was a 4th perspective, in which would be of the viewer, of the gallery visitor that's in that space, who eventually will want to take several steps back to see the entire work. And then based on that, they will move towards one particular image. And I think that 4th perspective is really important, because it's not just guiding you, it's actually asking you to choose which image you want to move towards and what you see, and then take a step back again and evaluate the whole scene ahead. So that's what I was more interested in.
It's fantastic. Nawang, this has been so great. Thanks for taking the time to drop by our Classic 107 studio and talk to me about the exhibit Shifting Horizons that is on right now as part of the WAG at the park, at the Pavillion, at the Assiniboine Park Conservancy. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me. Thank you to our listeners.